Turbulence can really frighten people. When you're cruising at 35,000 feet and the plane suddenly shakes, it feels like something's wrong, but usually nothing's wrong. Welcome to Travel with Buddy and Jordan. I'm Jordan and your co-host, Buddy. Today I want to explain why turbulence happens, especially at cruising altitude, so it's no longer mysterious. And once you understand why something happens, makes it a whole lot less stressful. First, I want to talk about low altitude turbulence, the 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 feet. It's the kind not so much encountered when you're taking off, but most likely landing when the plane is slowed and you're coming in for a landing. So at that altitude, at the low altitude, it's primarily caused by the sun heating the Earth's surface and the heat radiating from surfaces differently, unevenly. The sun heats the Earth's surface, and they radiate heat different. Lake, oceans are different than sand. Beach are different than grass, are different than trees, are different than forests, are different than cement. All these surfaces that the sun heats, air rises differently at varying speeds. And so it's simply warm air rising and cool air settling, and all these various thermal pockets rising creates that turbulence. In fact, the warm air thermals rising are what glider pilots rely on. So once you understand, it is simply just different columns of air moving, it's a whole lot less mysterious. Now, let's talk about high altitude turbulence at the cruising altitudes, 35,000, 42,000 feet. Up there is no Earth heating effect. It is often caused by jet streams, which is just rivers of air moving swiftly. It could be wind shear, which is wind moving at different speeds. Also, clear air turbulence. There are no clouds, just clear air moving differently. And then mountain wave effects. If you're at that altitude, if you're going by very tall mountains, the winds coming over the mountains go at or travel at different speeds. And that mountain air turbulence can cause some turbulence up at the higher altitudes. But there are no clouds, there's no storm, just invisible air moving differently at those cruising altitudes. It's just still moving air. And I've heard or I've read some reports that turbulence may be getting worse, that some pilots have reported stronger than normal jet streams. But it's also true that air traffic has increased, reporting has gotten much better, and routes are more precisely tracked. So all these factors, we're better tracking everything, reports are more accurate, and the more air traffic, we're going to get more or increased reports of turbulence. But regardless, turbulence at altitude is something airliners are built for. Aircraft are engineered with very high structural margins. So they are tested under far greater forces than you are going to experience at the cruising altitude. That fear factor, the fear piece. Turbulence is uncomfortable, but it's rarely dangerous. Sometimes pilots will slow the airplane down a bit just to reduce the effects of the turbulence. The seatbelt sign comes on, that's precautionary. The aircraft is not falling, it's just moving through different speeds of air currents. That's normal. So what should you do? That's up to you. You decide on what's comfortable for you. But for me and Buddy, personally, when we travel on short distances, a couple hours, we always have the seatbelt sign on. I rarely get up on that short of a flight, and we just sit and have the seatbelt sign off. But when I'm taking an international flight, if it's 4, 5, 8, 9, 10 hours flying, I leave my seatbelt on, even though the seatbelt sign is off, and I don't have to. I expect the unexpected. Yes, I'll occasionally get up to go to the restroom, or maybe get up and ask for, additional drink or something from one of the flight attendants. But for the most part, I'm sitting. We're sitting in our seat. I'm there watching a movie, reading a book, reading an article, maybe taking a nap if it's an overnight flight, sleeping. I'm not doing anything strenuous where I need to be, I can't be constrained. I'm sitting. And it takes only just a couple seconds once I sit back down to buckle the seatbelt. That way, there's if the plane does encounter unexpected turbulence, there's no surprises. there's no risk of me shifting, or if it's severe turbulence, flying out of my seat. I'm already there, restrained, and it's not uncomfortable for me, because it is a means of transportation to get from one place to another. And so it's not restraining to me to just merely have my seatbelt buckled. I expect the unexpected. If you feel constrained and confined by sitting in a seat for hours with the seatbelt on, that is your choice. But for me, it's a very minor adjustment that relieves a lot of. Well, for me, I'm not anxious about flying at all, but for a lot of people, that would relieve a lot of anxiety, knowing that if they did encounter sudden turbulence, they're already seated. They're not going anywhere, and they're not going to be flying through the cabin like you've seen some of these movies or whatever else. But that's what we do when we fly. What you do is entirely your choice. It's a personal choice for you. Turbulence isn't something to fear, but it is something to respect. So understanding what's happening with that movement of air causing the turbulence definitely relieves some of that fear factor. Hopefully some of the stress as well. And taking simple precautions can remove some of that anxiety even further. Hopefully that's the goal. That's why you're watching, is to have a better and more enjoyable flight experience. And just that simple act of buckling my seatbelt, or buckling your seatbelt when you fly, can put your mind at ease in case the unexpected does happen. There's no issue. So the next time you feel turbulence at cruising altitude, remember, it's just air moving. That's all. The aircraft is built for it. The pilots expect it. And in almost every case, it's not a big deal. Nothing is wrong. Simple precautions and understanding why it's happening should help relieve some of the more anxious flyers. So if you found this helpful, I'll continue breaking down flying and international travel here on this channel. If you'd like more detailed information, you can follow us at Travels with Buddy and Jordan, where we will break down flying, taking you from your check-in to your destination so you can have a much better trip. And with that, enjoy your next flight, and hopefully it is smooth sailing for you.